You know, one of the fun things about this conference is you get to have hundreds of emails from Margaret, who makes you feel like this is a family. I love chit-chatting with her. So they say that the music we listen to when we're teenagers is the music we tend to listen to later in life. Honestly, I didn't listen to Mozart and Bach when I was a kid, and I don't really listen to the Beach Boys anymore. But I really think that this song from that I remember, actually, sadly, in 1966, I think best captures how we, many of us, think about where we are in the rhythm of life. And I'll talk about that briefly. There's not much disagreement right now about sort of how things are set up. I know I need to modernize the title, so I've been following my daughter's playlist, and I do follow Taylor Swift and Lady Gaga and Kira on Twitter. I'm looking for ideas. The problem is I don't know what to do with We're Never Ever Getting Back Together. So I actually think in about 5 months I might switch to a song that a young singer, Kira, has written called Gold, because in about 5 months we will be the longest running expansion that we've had in our history that we know about. So I think, to me, this is about the broad features of the macroeconomy. It's not about, I'm guessing if you were an auto worker, you can probably think of a better time in life that you've had. This title is about the broad features of the economy. My guess is Bill would not use this to describe his universe, nor would Norm, which you'll hear later. But this is about the broad economy. And I think, bottom line, I think when we spend a lot of time thinking about history and, what rhymes and where are the similarities and the differences. I personally think that we're in a very special place right now for the broad economy. And I claim that if we could time travel and go back to another time in history and find a better setup for the broad economy, I don't think you could find one. And what I mean by that is we've recovered from a really bad recession, like we always do, and unemployment is as low as we can remember since Brian Wilson and Mike Love wrote this song. And inflation, in contrast to many of the cycles that we've had, we're sort of struggling to understand why inflation's not really much of an issue, and I'm sure this is sort of plaguing the Fed. That's good news. So we have an economy that's recovered. We don't see the inflation problems that normally make you worry about what the Fed has to do and the next potential recession. And in contrast to every one of the last 3 cycles that we've had, where unprecedented things were going on, the thrift problems in 1990, the telecom Y2K, dot-com speculation that fueled the market back in the 1990s, the real estate problems of the last decade, it's hard to find things that rhyme with these financial imbalances that have thrown the economy off course. So I would just do a real quick update on sort of just a reminder. To me, the best way to follow the economy, I don't care about retail sales, I don't care about housing starts, I don't care about all the pieces that we look at, because following the economy is very confusing because you're getting pieces of a puzzle. And it sometimes takes a good year before you get the puzzle put together. But I know by watching, and this is sort of the lesson I learned when I went to the Fed. When you're in school, you learn all these theories. When I went to the Fed in Washington, I didn't hear too much theory. It was all about the data and trying to make sense of the data. And the one thing that always sort of rung a bell in my mind, what we were obsessed with, what I'm showing you on this picture. And I've learned over time, particularly in this last decade, and it's the reason why I've been optimistic is because the thing that tells you what's really going on in the economy, that tells you best what's going on, is what I'm showing you here. And it's the number of people who file for unemployment benefits. And the reason it's so valuable is because it tells you something about the status of people who have jobs or the status of businesses that are operating. And what happens is because most of us belong to the unemployment insurance system. If a business has to cut back, they lay off folks, they go file for unemployment benefit. And so every Thursday morning, when you see this information, you're getting a snapshot of something that's happening in every corner of America. Small companies, big companies, doesn't matter where you live. If you have a job, I see you the next week. And so you're getting a real timely view of the economy. You're getting a comprehensive view of the economy. You're getting an accurate view. Weekly data are noisy, but this thing has been telling us since March of 2009 that despite all the pessimism and the worry about slow growth, and demographics was a big issue, people were mystified for the longest time. Why is it that the job market is improving when you have such slow growth? And what this thing has been telling us since March of 2009 is that we're getting back on our feet. And I've learned, when you're trying to follow the economy, I've learned what you need to do is tune out what you hear on the airwaves, tune out what you hear in Washington, and just pay attention to what the business community is doing, because it's the survivors out there that see opportunity, that know more about economics than I do, that you're looking for. And this is what that tells you. And what's really interesting, you get a lot of color when you look at this information. You get color state by state. And in the last couple weeks, we've seen a bit of a pickup in jobless claims. And when you look at the state data, what you realize, it always gives you information, tells you whether there's a real economic story going on, or is this about weather or something else. And in the last couple of weeks, what we've noticed is things have picked up a little. Most of it's California. If you live here, you know about the rain. And the state has a huge agricultural industry, and this is where a lot of churning takes place. So wake up this morning, look at the number, and all of a sudden we're back to where we were. So people were, in my community, there's this hysteria about potential recession. I'll tell you why. And this little pickup in claims is making all my peers think, oh my God, here we go, another downturn. And yet, here we are. And I think if things continue steady, I think we should expect to see the level of claims kind of move sideways. Now, this is an extremely low level. We've not seen, this tells you that things are really humming. And you look at state by state, this is sort of the story you see almost everywhere in most states. So personally, I think, long story short, my view is the most useful metaphor, I think the thing that best describes how to think about where we are, is the third game of the World Series. 18 innings. It should have gone another way. 18 innings, because truly, we are in the ninth inning. In terms of recovering from the damage that was done in the recession, unemployment's back down. So you could say that we're in the ninth inning of recovering from recession. But I really think the useful thing about baseball, the game's not necessarily over if you're in the ninth inning. And I think that's what the big issue is about right now. So here's the unemployment rate in historical perspective. We're in a really good spot. And so two questions. If things are so good, why are people talking about a recession possibility? And you'll hear this story for the next several years. This is just what happens. On Wall Street, I think people have this idea that the economy either goes down or it goes up, and that's all it does. And when you go down, you never stay down. When you go up, you never stay up. And there's a logic to that story in a sense. What's happening, this idea has been kind of festering for a good year, and it really got audible late last year when the market was going down. This is the story that's kind of driving everybody's panic. What people have noticed is when you look at our history, and what I'm showing you here is the unemployment rate, and it's upside down. So when bad things happen, the unemployment rate goes up, but on this picture, you're going down. And I'm overlaying it on top of what we economists think is the sort of sustainable level of unemployment. The blue line is the natural level of unemployment. CBO at the Fed, most of us economists sort of think, with the benefit of hindsight, this is the place you want to be, that blue line. And it changes over time because of demographics. So when the workforce gets really young, the reason that blue line goes down or the natural level of unemployment goes up is because we realize that when we're young, we get frustrated with our jobs. We hop jobs thinking the next job is going to be better. When you get older, you realize it's no different than what you had. But what we found was the natural level of unemployment seems to go up with a young workforce, and as we age, which we are, the natural level of unemployment tends to come down. So why this is relevant, this is helping to explain why there's talk about a recession. And what people have noticed is, well, we're always in motion. We're always cycling. Shallow recessions don't take that long to get out of. Deep ones take a long time to get out. It's not the length of the expansion that matters. It's the idea that what we've noticed is when we get back to full employment, the blue line, we never seem to stay there more than a year or two. And honestly, that is the logic that's going on with this debate about the potential for a recession this year, next year, because we have this history. To me, that's really intellectually lazy to view things this way, because that is our history. The history shows that we just don't seem to stay here. But I think what you want to do is you want to ask, why does this happen? And I think when you ask economists, why is it, when you go back to all these cycles, why is it that we've never seemed to stay at full employment when we get there? Well, in the old days, it used to be about inflation problems. The economy comes roaring back, inflation's heating up, and the Fed has to start thinking about stepping on the brakes because we've overdone it. I think we've learned a lot over the decades. That is not our problem today. In fact, it's the opposite. We're struggling to understand why our models that we invented in the 70s and 80s aren't doing a very good job of explaining what's going on here. Inflation and the Fed's behavior, the body language of the Fed is telling you this is not our problem. And then the other thing, if you look more recently, since the 1990s, the issue has been less about inflation, and it's been more about some unusual thing going on, financial imbalance, like the ones that I listed. And I think the reason, when you ask yourself, is there something out there that reminds us of the kinds of trouble that has caused and sent the economy down in the past, it's really hard to find the red flags. And that's why I say we're in a very special moment from a macro point of view. I know the history, and you have to respect history because nothing good lasts forever. But the truth is, the things that we know that have caused the problems just are not real visible. And I think that's why all this talk about recession, you got to respect the history. But honestly, I think it's way premature. And I don't think there's anything that you can look at that says that looks unprecedented. We couldn't say that in 2006 and 2007. We couldn't say that in 2001. And we knew there were thrift problems back in 1990, which triggered that recession. So to me, this is a debate you're going to be hearing a lot, just because this is what our history tells us. But I think for the first time in a long time, we're going to see what we're looking at right now is going to be a lot different than what we've been living with. And that's, I think, why I claim this feels to me like we're in the third game of the World Series. Now, the other big issue, I think this is the issue of our time, actually. And I think it's going to permeate it is permeating the political debate. The question is, if the job market is so great, and it is from a macro point of view, unemployment is the lowest we've seen in decades. Layoff claims we're humming. Employment has been accelerating, even though we're kind of at low levels of unemployment. It reminds us there must be lots of pockets of hidden unemployment out there that we still haven't pulled back in. But if the job market is so great and we have 7.3 million jobs we can't fill because immigration has not been helping us out, why is there this feeling that there's something wrong? Why is it that when you scratch beneath the surface, there's a lot of angst, and it comes up in things like the distribution of income, worries about the middle class. And I think the thing to recognize is this, as good as the job market is, it's real understandable why there is all this angst. And I think this picture kind of describes the story, and it kind of tells you we're in the middle of something humongous, and we need to understand it. And we need to come up with good answers. And the answers you're hearing in the airwaves are not the right answer. And I think so the way I think about this is, if you look at all the income that's created in our economy, where does it go? The income that's generated. The share that goes to workers is that red line that's going down. And the share of it's going to profits is the other line that's going up. And, we're kind of used to, when the economy goes through cycles, the distribution of income gets thrown around. And in recessions, workers don't do as well. But then when we recover, things kind of renormalize. But what's been going on is something really big. It's been kind of hidden because the recessions in 2001 and then 2008 kind of left you the impression that maybe this is all a cyclical thing and it's going to correct itself. But what's been going on is since the late 1990s, the distribution of income going to workers has been shrinking dramatically. The share of after-tax profits that is running about 10% of GDP. Historically, it would average 6%. So this is a huge thing that's going on, and it tells you if there are people that say, I don't get your optimism about the broad economy because it doesn't feel right, this is the reason, there's something to it, and it's about this. And I think the thing to understand is this is not something that's happening because market systems are inherently unfair. There's something bigger going on. And I think, we in the economics community, we're sort of beginning to get the sense there's something unique happening going back to the 1990s. We're used to the idea, we learned that when companies invest in tools and equipment, they give us things that make us do our jobs better. Tractors, computers, mechanical equipment. You invest in capital and it helps me do my job better, makes me more productive, and that drives my income up. But what's going on in the modern era is that the innovation, the investment in robotics and AI, it's not helping me do my job better, it's taking my job away. It's displacing me. And so the income, that the value of what I as a worker does is being divvied up from my effort and what the robot's doing. And the way you see that is, to me, this is the heart of what's driving what's going on in the distribution of income. Productivity is going up steadily, but the hourly pay that workers get began to divide, but it's sometime back in the last decade. And I think the thing to recognize is this is not, you can't blame Amazon and Google for this. They are very clever and they invented a lot of stuff here, the ride-sharing services and all that, but it's you and me that's making this happen. And when I do a one-click on here to save myself 5 hours going to the mall, I know the huge benefits that I get from that. But I know that when I do that, I'm contributing to this transformation that's taking place across America, where Amazon distribution centers are popping up and malls are shrinking and retail sector is shrinking. It's the innovation that we all embrace that's driving it. And why this matters is because we think, and the academics are doing work on this, trying to understand what's happening here. We're referring to this concept of superstar firm phenomenon. We think it's innovation and the displacement of routine work that's driving this. And what it tells you is if you want to respond to this problem, the smart way to go about this isn't to punish the people who are benefiting because they're driving something really important. And for our younger generation and future generations, what's going on here is creating vast opportunities for people to do things. There's all kinds of opportunities. The problem is, if you're 50 and a robot took your job, you've got a job. If you look at Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin, unemployment trends are quite good there. And job growth is quite good, except the problem is, you notice there are people doing jobs that they didn't used to do. And I think that the heart of what's going on here is they're not earning the same pay that they were getting when they were in the auto plant. And that's what innovation, that's what this displacing phenomenon is doing. And I think what it tells you is the right answer, the right answer is not to complain about it, because it's not going to go away. If there are benefits that we're getting from it and you and I are using it, that's what's driving it. The right answer isn't to punish the people who are benefiting. The right answer is to figure out how to train people for the opportunities that are out there and get the skills. And I think it's a bigger challenge today than it used to be, because this is a job that needs to happen at the public level. It's got to be a cooperation between the public sector and the business community. Most of my clients run small, mid-sized businesses. They say we can train a guy to do the jobs that we need, but then they develop marketable skills, and guess what happens? They hop jobs. So this is not an effort that can be solved by asking the business community to do it. It's got to be a cooperation between the public sector and the business community and the community colleges and the higher education system. So I think it's a really big story. And I think it's to me, it's the economic driver of what's going on here. It's shaping up, that's just contributing to this widening of income distribution. For me as an economist, as economists, we sort of love innovation because we know that it's disruptive, but we also know that it creates opportunities. I don't know if most of you guys won't know this, but when I was a kid, you get on an elevator, you never pushed buttons. There was somebody who operated the elevator. In my lifetime, unbelievable. And my wife, her high school job was switchboard, plugging wires in. Well, it's just a reminder that this has been going on all our life. What's happening now is probably more disruptive because it's happening in a shorter time frame, and you can't count on writing out your career and your job is secure. So there's a lot of disruption from this, and this is the noise that's going on in the political airwaves. But the truth is, for me as an economist, I just smell massive opportunity. And I think this I think 10, 15 years from now, we won't be talking too much about the challenges of this because I think young people figure out where the opportunities are. And the jobs that are demanding, that require high skills are good paying jobs that we have no problem filling those. The problem right now really is filling the jobs that retiring baby boomers are leaving, because it's hard to find a 20-year-old who knows what a 65-year-old does, because frankly, you don't learn most of these skills in our jobs from school. We learn them on the job. And to me, the biggest transformation and disruption going on right now is the demographic thing that's happening and the complaint everybody has about not being able to find jobs. So to me, that's music to my ears, because that tells me there is something good going on. It tells me there is a lot of opportunity. And thankfully, because we are back on our feet, no inflation problems, and we don't see inflation, the financial imbalances that normally make you worry, that's why I think Brian Wilson, Mike Love's song, is sort of caught the moment. So that's my story.